And then Dr. also online. And then the antenna is Professor James. And the supervisors are Reverend Professor NG for the NG, and then Reverend Dr. Yafe Frampong, who is coming. I'll call him. Okay.
Prophet James, can you see the opening slide?
No, I can hear you.
And then Dr.
Yes, I'm also around. I can hear you.
All right, thank you. So we are going to give the candidate Emmanuel 30 minutes to take his presentation, and then we will come to the audience before we come to online so I can give you the opportunity to ask them. So you have
Thank you, Prof. Chair, distinguished examiners, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. My name is Emmanuel Twumasi-Ankrah. I'm presenting on a topic, a study of Adam-Adama relations in Genesis 1, 26 to 28, 2 verses 7 and 15, and its implications for earth-keeping among Akan Christians. These are my outlines. It is important for me at the onset to explain the key terms in my topic. The first key term is Adam. In this particular case, Adam environment. One would agree with me that one of the most global of all crises is the ecological crisis. Humans across the globe are becoming increasingly aware of the fact that the modern human has been altering his environment so swiftly to the extent that the whole great chain of life is endangered, causing global warming, climate change, disasters such as landslides, earthquake, diseases, and so on. Ghana's situation is not different, as I have presented photo evidence of environmental situation in our communities. Here I present to you a lorry station, a market, a mini market, a street in front of a school, littered. Then churches are involved. Some churches are involved in these environmental flippancies. As I present to you pictures from church gatherings that have been littered, especially during crusades. Another picture, group of pictures I show are encroachment of wetlands by some churches for church buildings, specifically around Ampabame community, which is one of my study areas. Statement of problem. With all these environmental flippancies that I have presented to you, Mr. Chairman, there have been government interventions to help salvage the environmental problems in Ghana. Government throughout the Fourth Republic have made efforts by giving out dustbins, enactment of bylaws, establishment of sanitation courts, establishment of sanitation ministry, and so on and so forth. But all these government interventions have not yielded much. As a result, according to Apia Secretary, in 2018, the World Health Organization, WHO, tagged Ghana as one of the dirtiest nations in the world. Second in open defecation, sorry. And in 2021, the report from Environmental Performance Index, organized by the Yale University, they sampled 46 nations in sub-Saharan Africa. Ghana was ranked 39 out of 46. The recent EPI, Environmental Performance Index, organized in 2022, also reports that out of the 180 nations that were studied, Ghana was ranked 170th. And when they decided to study environmental change for these nations, these 180 nations within a decade, they realized that Ghana's situation was -6. Now, all these problems that Ghana is facing as far as our environment is concerned, and the various interventions that have not yielded much, have caused religious scholars and theologians to advocate for a religious response. It is as a result of this call that I have presented this thesis as my way of contributing to solving the environmental problems in the country. Now, if Christians would want to respond to the environmental problems in Ghana, obviously the Bible is going to be one of the specimens that will be used for any scientific interrogations. And Kojo Oche, for example, has indicated that the Bible contains very key symbols in addressing environmental problems for sustainable development. But Mr. Chairman, it is important for me to state that this same Bible in the 1960s was fingered to be one of the bases for environmental exploitation. The key critic was Lengua Jr., who came up with a thesis entitled Historical Roots of Ecological Crisis. He asked the question whether or not the Bible authorizes exploitation and whether or not Christianity is an anthropocentric religion. Len White's position was based on a biblical text that I have chosen, Genesis 1:26 to 28, where the narrator says that God told human to be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth and have dominion. This particular text, according to Norman Haber, indeed has been regarded to be a mandate for exploitation. James Barr, in responding to Len White's position, indicated that this same text, if it is well interpreted, it can be harnessed to deal with the ecological crisis. It was on the basis of this that I sought to find a deeper understanding of what that text or this text really meant for ancient Israel and what it may mean to Akan Christian readers. Research questions. My main research question is, what is the interconnectedness between Adam and Adamah relations in the context of Old Testament theology and its implications for earth-keeping among Akan Christians? Specific questions. 1. What are the implications of Bible translations, eco-theology, Akan worldview on human-earth relations for earth-keeping among Akan Christians? What is the context, textual, semantic, morphological, and syntactical situation of the text? Number 3, what is the concept of Adam-Adamah relations in the context of Old Testament theology? And what are the implications of the rendering of the text in Akan Mother Tongue Bibles for Akan readers towards earth-keeping? And lastly, what should be the suitable translation and interpretation of keywords in the text I have selected, such as Kabash and Radar in Genesis 1:26 to 28, and Avad and Shamar in Genesis 2:15 in the Akan Mother Tongue Bibles. Adam-Adamah relations in the context of Old Testament theology and its implications for earth-keeping among Akan Christians. My specific objectives are to assess Bible translations, eco-theology, and Akan worldviews on human-earth relations and its implications for earth-keeping among Akan Christians. 2, to analyze the context, the textual, semantic, morphological, and syntactic situation of the text. Number 3 is to examine the concept of Adam-Adamah relations in the context of Old Testament theology. 4th, to study the implications of the rendering of the text in Akan Mother Tongue for Akan Christians towards earth-keeping. And lastly, to explore a suitable translation and interpretation of the keywords Abash Radar, Avad Shamar. My methodology was largely exegetical with regards to the text and qualitative methods. And with the text, my main focus was the working text, the Masoretic text, the Biblia Hebraicus Uddatensia. And I had to focus on the Akan Mother Tongue Bibles. And the 3 Akan Mother Tongue Bibles that are in circulation now are Scientific Bible, Graphic Bible, and then Fancy Tree Bible. And then I had to make use of critical apparatus and ancient manuscripts such as the Septuagint, LSS, Targum, Pseudo-Jonathan, Samaritan Pentateuch, the Vulgate, and the Peshitta. And I also fell on journal articles and books. Then my approach with the text was historical critical. My data collection instrument, because I also did field work, were interviews and personal observations. And my approach with regards to the interviews and personal observation, the data from the field, was phenomenological. The whole thing were actually analyzed thematically. So with the historical critical approach, I put the text in context. And I had to look at the remote context. My remote context is the primary history, which has the 2 sources, priestly source and the Yahweh source. Then I have to use the textual, where I have come up with textual variants. I've actually identified textual variants with the text I've selected. Then the semantic situation, I have to look at the meaning of the keywords, because speakers or authors actually put what they mean in the words. Then the morphological situation, I have to look at the various words that come together to form a word. Then the syntactical situation, I have to look at how to deal with the words in question and their relationship with the other words within the passage, the sentences that are going to be analyzed. My results, findings, and discussions. I am beginning with the test analysis. As I have stated, that in the context is primarily history. Now, I must say that I have found textual variants in the various ancient manuscripts that I consulted and I presented the results. After that, I attempted a structure for the text. That is my pericope. I attempted a structure. My structure is linear structure. Now, when you look at Genesis chapter 1, 26, where the scripture says that, and God said, let us make human. This statement has evolved debate. Scholars are divided on the plurality of letters when they argue that God, probably number one, was actually talking to God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. That's the Trinitarian idea. That this is what some people say. Another group of people are of the view that it is a plural of majesty, where kings, when they are even speaking, they speak in a plural manner. And then the last one has nothing to do with plural of deliberation or consultation. This is where these scholars, Casito and the rest, they say that God was actually deliberating concerning the making of human being with his heavenly host. Now, another thing I found was the word naase, that is translated as let us make. The word naase is actually coming from the word asa, which means to form or to be formed. Now, it is important for me to state that human beings were formed from the ground, because the text says naasa, Adam, let us make, not let us create. It is important for me to say this because if the translations that may come later used to create, it is going to actually decouple human beings from the earth, and it will not establish the interconnectedness that is expected to exist between human and earth. That is why the Masoretic text, the actual working text, used asa to establish the relationship that exists between human and the earth. Human was formed from the ground. Then in Genesis 2:7, it confirms what I have said when the narrator used the word yisem from the verb yasar, which means to form into shape. Form into shape. And it's so interesting to compare it to the Septuagint. The Septuagint also used the word poieo, for asa, which means to make, to confirm what I've said, that human being was made or formed, not created. Another thing I have found is that human beings were made in the image and likeness of God, meaning that they are full of God. They have the qualities of God, the mind of God. Now, in Genesis 1:28, where God, after God has formed human beings, the text indicates that God blessed them. It has also been seen as a command. These blessings that God gave them, the text indicates that the Lord God blessed them. The word there is yivarik, from the Hebrew word, the Hebrew verb barak, means to bless. Now the verb has been rendered in imperfect third masculine singular in Pierre. In Hebrew verbal tense, Pierre denotes intensive action or intensive active. So when a verb is rendered in Pierre, it means that the action was done with intensity. It was not simple active. So the verb there should not be translated simply as God blessed, but actually God blessed abundantly, or God blessed well. And this is so important because one of my study is concerned. It will actually show the kind of relationship and how human is supposed to relate with the earth, because the idea of kinship. So in the whole Old Testament theology, my thesis has found kinship theology, and it is confirmed by Friedrich. Then another thing I find in Old Testament theology with regards to relationship, human-earth relationship, is the fact that in Old Testament, people realized that the earth was sacred because God was living among them. Another thing I realized is that it is probable that the people of Old Testament were actually, some of them were practicing environmental pollution. As a result, in Numbers 35:33 and Deuteronomy 21:22, the prophet Moses is warning the people against defiling their environment. Now, with eco-theories as part of what the key thing here is that according to Dre and even Pope Francis, Tucker and Green, they say that the main issue is that there was a misinterpretation and misunderstanding of the text. It's not that the Bible actually encourages exploitation, but the Christians probably misunderstood the text. And this is my findings are that from account perspective, according to Lumanzi, in African culture, human is believed to have a sense of kinship, confirming the Old Testament theology that I have indicated. Now, from the Akan people, their interrelationship or interconnectedness that exists between human and earth is seen in their giving anthropomorphic name to the earth. They call the earth Ya, among the Asante, and then Ifwa from the Fantis, showing that there's an interconnectedness. Then the earth is considered to be bosom. Bosom in Akan means valued or respected community member. It doesn't mean that bosom doesn't mean that the earth is an object of worship, because the earth doesn't have priests. Nobody worships the earth. But it is from the Akan nice way of changing phrasal verbs into a noun. When they say sombo into a noun now is bosom. To come to siya, ebu, and that is what is happening here. Then Akans believe that the earth is their home. That is why the earth, when a man dies, he is buried in the earth, and in BT confirms it that for Akan, the earth is his cradle, it is his home, and he returns to it. Then there's also something I call body smell philosophy. This one indicates that when one rubs his arm against one another for a long time and you smell it, the smell smells like the smell of the earth. And it also corroborates the interconnectedness. Among the Akan, because that kinship idea is there's an earth Sabbath. On Thursday, the people are not supposed to go to the farm, and so on. They also show this interconnectedness by enacting taboos that really establish these interconnectedness. And then the keeping of sacred groups, and then ecological proverbs and wise sayings. So they say that when the earth is hot, it is the feet that reveals it. Meaning that the human and earth has a connection. So when the earth is hot, it is telling the Akan that they are actually abusing the environment, and it is creating global warming. It's a very important thing. So as I presented to you the pictures, I realized that there are environment of Akan communities are really polluted. There's littering, acquisition and use of wetlands, of sewage, and so on. But I must say quickly that it's not only Christians, Akan Christians, that are involved in the destruction. The destruction of the environment, I say, constitutes or is coming from a cartel of loiters and looters, from business people, political leaders, traditional authorities, chiefs, and so on. Land Commission and all of them are together. They are all part of this thing. With the text in Akan Mother Tongue Bible, this is what I realized. That the verb as I indicated. From the Ethiopian Bible and the Infantry Bible, Asa has been translated as Bob. But as we saw, Asa is supposed to be make, not create. Then Infantry Bible translates Yasa or Yisel, which is formed as Bob, same create. And then in the Asante Bible and the Ethiopian Bible, they use nyono or name. So the Ethiopian Bible can take a clue from the Asante Bible and the rest. Then the Akanji Bibles all translated Rada, which means to rule or have dominion, and Kabash with cohesive undertones. Example, with the 1964 version of the Assassination, that is coerce the earth or force the earth. And the current one, the 2012, says Munya Sutumi. All these can create or can give a casual reader an embodiment to actually molest the earth. Then all the translations that I have checked, they translated Begum Eden, which is Garden of Eden in the English, simply as Eden truth and Eden tree in the fancy. But my study has actually indicated that Eden can also be translated, because Eden is not Akan. It is actually Hebrew, and it means beautiful. And when it is translated as beautiful garden, it actually shows how humans are supposed to treat the environment. So I have proposed something that I'll show you later. Then all the text, the Akanji Bibles also translate Yivarek as simply Shira, which is Barak, Shira. But I have indicated that indeed Yivarek is impure, imperfect, and is supposed to be Shira on Ye or Shira on Pa, bringing out how much of God is in human, and then what he's supposed to do to the environment. Then finally, the Asante Bible translated Avad and Shammah as honor na oneho. Honor here, I think that from the study, if it is maintained, even though we understand the deeper meaning of dog, but the casual reader and then the modern human with modern with economic mind may simply rely on honor as clear or weed. So if we could have another word that can really settle the doubt, why not? So I have done that for a better text, because that is the essence of exegesis. Now this is my alternative translation of the text in Akan Mother Tongue Bibles, and I've highlighted them. In 126, na Onyankopon can say, Moma yenyo onipa, not Moma yemo onipa. Then na Onyankopon yo onipa, everyone is subansu, na Onyankopon subansu na oyo no, again, avoiding the ball. Na Onyankopon shira onye or shira onpa, na Onyankopon say one say, Monso abana no, enye ma wa asase so. And check it here. Rada and then Kabash, which actually shows governing. It actually shows coordination. That is what it means. It means to coordinate. I have translated this as Namon Totwa Sasinisun woman ye. Namon Sherman the country Mumbra. Because that is government. When you are supposed to rule, you are not supposed to destroy. Like look for the well-being of your subjects, like kings do. Now, Radina Kopon, you know, Nipano 2 verse 7, every free form.im. And then the last verse, 2:15. Now, Radina Kopon, you Nipano could be a true fair instead of aiding true. True fair, you say, on your more Juma, not on Shesso. This on your more Juma is in line with both the fancy tree and the they translate it as on your more Juma, the Yapin tree, and the fancy say, on CSC. But Asante tree say, honor, and I think that I can be done. Then, alright, sir. Then neologize new account proverbs and wise sayings to augment the existing one. My recommendation to from this text to academia, it is recommended that we can take up eco-homiletics, eco-hermeneutics, eco-poetry, and so on. The national policy making, it is recommended that we make a policy so that we can avoid changing status of nature reserves. My thesis has realized and is confirmed by scholars that people misunderstood the text. Then what we are saying here that even what we call ecological crisis is rather theological crisis. And the human crisis that is encouraged by westernization and commodification. Now this thesis has proposed kinship model to drive home the idea of human and earth relationship as relatives or kinsmen. And I must say finally that the Akan Christians that I study, they have what it takes to contribute to salvaging the ecological crisis in Ghana. This is because they have rich IEKs, indigenous ecological knowledge, and the biblical ecological knowledge. And thus, if we integrate both the IEKs and the BEKs, in addition to relevant modern methods, such as recycling and tree planting and so on, it could help salvage the ecological crisis in Ghana. Contribution to knowledge. I've contributed to eco-theology with kinship translation. I've given alternative translations, and then with IEKs, I have neologized ecologically inclined proverbs and wise sayings. So that, thank you.
But I didn't understand the truth. Just I don't shit.
Thanks, Obrigado, for insightful presentation. What were the key theological and ecological insights that emerged from your study regarding the relationship between Adam and Adama in the context of Akan Christianity?
The idea that has emerged from the study with regards to the interconnectedness is kinship theology. So human and earth are understood from the Bible and also from the Akan perspective as kinsmen. Thank you.
The whole idea that humans and nature are a community of themselves, or humans and nature, they are the same community.
Of this, they are community members. In fact, that is the reason why some theologians advocated for neighborship, thinking that, saying that both human and nature, they form the creation fiat of God, and they live on the same community. For Akan people, as indicated by Agwenyamche, he said that environment is life, and life is environment. Thank you.
I heard you mention make mention of the fact that when you scratch your finger on your body, the smell that comes is equal to that of the earth. How scientific it is, or how can you relate that? Is it not the problem of man's senses?
Proven, but I also know that science has gotten to do with observation and all those processes, observation, experimentation, and all that. So it is a good start that we have observed that if you rub your arm against one another, we have observed that this is happening. Maybe scientists can take it up with the other processes. Thank you.
And thank you for quoting me as well.
My pleasure.
I have some few questions. I know my brother Kujo has some also to say. Your work seems to go with what I'm currently doing. I have worked on a project, Pre-Christian Era Africa and Christian Era Africa. The question I asked was, which of them is an effective agent on the sustainability of the environment? And it appears you have said a lot, and you have presented a good job. But I have some few questions to ask you. has to do with the exegesis aspect of what you did. The word kamash, you said, assumes that the party being subdued is closer to the subduer. I don't know whether you took into account that in Esther 7 verse 8, the same word is used as read. And in places like Numbers 32, Joshua 18, 1 Chronicles 22, it is used as a conquest of the Canaanites. And then in 2 Chronicles 28, Nehemiah 5, and Jeremiah 34, the same word is used to refer to as forced servitude. So rape, conquest, forced servitude seem to go with those who think that the Jesus account is asking human beings to exploit or make good use of the environment. Why do you say that the same word is used differently in Genesis text that you are using? Do you get me?
Yes, please, Bob.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. Please, it is true that the word kabash and even radar, or they all usually go together, have been used in the text you have cited for subjugation. But you would agree with me that in those contexts, the subjugation is seen from human and human relationship, where the people of Israel, having gone to the promised land, so-called promised land, they had to contend with the Canaanites. And therefore, the Canaanites that were stubborn in quote, they had to be subdued. Because subjugation happens in Old Testament theology, where in the community there's supposed to be order, when order has to be created. Then, if a part of the community is bringing disorderliness, there must be order. And so that subjugation is allowed in the text. That is what you are seeing there. But in the creation narrative, the same words have been used, but the context is different. Because God the Creator could not have created a beautiful garden and then made human being in his own image, blessed them with all his mind and his thoughts and deeds, and at the same time he asked them to take care. Genesis 2:15, he said, Avad and the Shamar, you are to cultivate it and then keep it. He couldn't have contradicted himself by asking them to destroy. So that is why my work is very important. My approach was historical critical. So I have to put the text in context. In the context you have cited, it's different. And again, let me say that in Ezekiel 34, for example, shepherds or leaders that ruled and then took over their subjects with harshness, God condemned them. Meaning that largely in Old Testament theology, God does not encourage subjugation. But in the context of Israel and the Canaanites, it happened. But with human and nature, God wants us to actually coordinate, organize, cultivate it, and make sure that good potential will come out of it. So the context is what matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My next question is, could you explain your assertion that radar, which is in the cow perfect verb, means rule? In your thesis, you said should be intended to be understood in terms of caregiving and even nurturing and not exploitation. Can you explain this?
Thank you, Rob. Just as I just said, radar is to be understood in this context as caregiving and not exploitation. In fact, where the test occurs in Genesis, that is a primeval history or creation narrative. We do not see the first human that was created. We don't have any evidence of exploitation with them. Number two, the whole idea of creation emanated from God. And it is understood that God himself takes dominion of his creation, but he does not exploit it. Number three, kings rule over their subjects, but they are not expected to destroy them. So, again, is the context. That is the reason why my thesis is so important, because I have placed the text in context so that especially my account readers can really understand what the text means today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me go on to the exploitation aspect of your work. Can you summarize Leon White Jr.'s view on the source of environmental degradation? And do you agree with him or not? And then you can explain.
Thank you. Please, Leon White's view was based on the text Genesis 1:26 to 28. For him, he thought that the Christian religion was becoming anthropocentric because Christians were actually advocating for, or they were going about with the idea of dominion. And therefore, the Bible that has informed them with that kind of theology or understanding is authorizing exploitation. And he said that kind of idea was the basis for Western scientific and technological advancement in exploiting the environment. And in fact, from that particular viewpoint of Leon White, I agree with him to some extent, and I disagree with him in another part or another aspect. Number one, I disagree with him because I agree with him on the fact that Christians, even in the 1960s, as he himself alluded to, were not environmentally conscious. Many theologians and Christian researchers did not feature environmental issues in their work. That one, Leon White was right. He was also right to see that the Western missionaries that moved from Europe to the other places actually taught the indigenous people to understand that their environment, especially in Ghana, that's what I know, their environment and their cultural beliefs were pagan and animistic, were inferior. And therefore, the Christian converts, some of them became emboldened to begin to violate their own taboos. So, in that regard, I agree with White, but I disagree with him on the basis of Leon White. Okay. All right. Thank you. I disagree with that scholar on the basis of the fact that he said he blamed the Bible, he blamed the text, because my thesis has indicated that there's no problem with the text, but what is there is actually theological crisis that is emanating from his understanding of the text. The text is there to be understood. Thank you.
All right. Let me ask this critical question. When and where did the so-called dominion belay that sanctions human destruction of the environment start? Did your work address this issue?
Prof. In fact, as and when the idea of dominion among Christians, especially started, it is not known, it cannot be traced. My work did not seek to unearth that. But all that we know is that prior to the 1970s, the Christian scholars and writers did not feature it, but it's like
of your work under dominion mandate. You indicated that in conducting this study of yours, you never found any. Can you throw a little light on this?
Sorry, sir, please can you come again?
In set 2.4, you did not find any link between the text and the directive for humans to destroy the environment. And I'm saying that, can you throw a little bit light on this?
Thank you, sir. Yes, please. I made that assertion because of the fact that when I finished doing the study, I realized that the text is actually not encouraging anybody to exploit the environment. But even the idea of dominion is not disputed in the scriptures. God actually told human to have dominion. It's there. But what that dominion actually meant was the crux of the matter. And my thesis has attempted to actually bring to fore what it means. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Let me move on then to the aspect on Akan Christians. Professor Emmanuel Twumasi has said something that I want you to explain, because you mentioned that in your thesis. He made an assertion that pantheism can lead to romanticization of nature in our attempt to find solution to man's ecological problem. Do you agree with him? And if you do, why? And how can we avoid what he meant by pantheism leading us to romanticization of nature?
Thank you, Prof. Pantheism refers to, or is an idea that says that the environment, the natural environment, actually has value. You know, it has value or equal value with all creation, including humans. Especially, it is stemming out of biocentrism. So, Asante indicated that if we casually follow pantheism, which is an aspect of biocentrism, casually, it may lead us into romanticization of the environment or idolization. And that has really, my study showed it, that where, in Akan communities where taboos were enacted or established, some people casually, without thinking through even the reason why the taboos were given by our ancestors, have actually attempted to worship trees and rocks and so on. That is what Asante is warning us, cautioning us. And the fact that we have to respect the environment doesn't mean that we have to worship it. Thank you, sir. And I agree with you on that score, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me give a suggestion here. With the environment and destroying lands in the community, you seem to agree with him. How is your work going to correct this bad attitude of Christians?
Thank you, Prof. My work, because I use personal observation as an instrument for the collection of field data, I have presented photo evidence of Christians, churches, especially that have encroached wetlands. They have actually acquired and used the wetlands for church buildings. What I'm showing here are Church of Pentecost. Sorry for that. This one is Church of Pentecost. This one is Christ Apostolic Church. This is Pentecostal believers. And there are others behind, like Deeper Life. They are behind this particular building. Is there. So what I have presented is a fact. And the Methodist minister was also right. In fact, I interviewed the pastors for these churches and presented their views. They actually considered that it is not right for them to have done it. But they themselves are suffering there. That when it rains, they battle with reptiles and all kinds of things. And I've presented all these things in the thesis. So my work, having first of all, brought about the actual interconnectedness. Because that is why I sought to do the work that way. That I wanted to find out what is the relationship, because I believe that if human gets to know the kind of relationship that should exist between the human and earth, it will also help him to actually understand how he should relate. So having presented the kinship model, it will shape the understanding of Christians and account people in general that kinsmen are not expected to abuse their fellows. If someone is your relative, how do you destroy him? And when he's being destroyed by even others, you have to run for his rescue, as I indicated in Old Testament theology. So that will help them. It will inform teaching and preaching of the church. So, Prof, these are some of the things. Even among the accounts, I have neologized new account indigenous ecological proverbs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Including Kojo Watching. And you get me, Joy Mante, appear to be an Abba, and so have proposed for religious response to the ecological crisis in Ghana. So, if we are to respond from the religious point of view, if we are to do that from the Christian point of view, if Christians are supposed to get involved in providing that response, the Bible, same Bible, Kojo Ochre, for example, you have proposed that, you have said in your work, I read extensively on sustainable development, ecology, sustainable Bible, ecology and sustainable development, that you think that the Bible has key symbols that if we harness them, they can help in addressing the ecological crisis. But the same Bible has been blamed or fingered as promoting or encouraging exploitation. So I was like in a state of dilemma. So which is where if you have to go for the Bible as a Christian, it has been blamed as the one encouraging exploitation. But thanks be to God for from James Barr and others who indicated that the same Bible, the text, if it is read well, if it is interpreted well, it has the ability, it can harness biblical knowledge from it in addressing the problem. And that is why I sought to do the work that we done. Thank you.
Well, okay. What then is the role of the account translations?
Thank you.
What role do they play? And let me say that I'm asking this question because all what you narrated for me is obvious. It's obvious in the world of eco-theology or biblical theology in terms of the ecology. I mean, it's quite known there that the Bible is seen to, some people seem to be complicit, others say it is not. And as you rightly said, from the 1970s, scholars have responded massively to Len White's claims and arguments. I mean, anybody who picks work in eco-theology, the Bible and the environment, will see these arguments being narrated. So maybe you can take a look at that, and then you see about what you can do about that. Now, the issue of the translations within the account, what really is the issue there? Is it the problem that these translations, because you think they are wrongfully done, is leading to this environmental crisis that we have? People read and they don't understand what is the problem surrounding how these texts have been translated in the account languages.
Thank you, sir. As Len White was able to lay hands on the text to actually accuse Christians for getting involved in environmental exploitation in those days, way back in the 1960s. It was because of the way the text was translated in the various, I believe, in the various English versions that were existing at that time, where the verbs are rule, have dominion, and subdue the earth. So these words in English language itself show cohesiveness. So if a casual reader takes the text, he can use it to back his claim or his actions. The same way, when I look at the Akan mother tongue Bibles in existence now, as I have proven, that these words have been translated with the same cohesive undertones, such as Monshesu. In the 1964 text, it's existing. It's in the hands of readers. I checked that of 2024 that says Munyasu to me. So the same way the text was problematic because of how it was translated in English in the days of Len White. If it is translated like this today, with Munshasu and Munyasu to me, that is half power. A casual reader.
I'm sorry, but was Len White's problem about the translation or the understanding? And how do you do a difference between translation and interpretation? There should be a link.
Yes, please. So
what was Len White's issue about? How the text in Hebrew, are you saying that for those who read in Hebrew, they understood the text as in a positive sense? Is the issue about translation or the issue is about understanding? Whichever way it is translated.
Thank you, sir. From Len White's points of view, with the material I read, he did not actually lay hands on whether the Bible had been mistranslated. It was actually the other scholars that responded to him, like Gray and James Barr. They actually pointed out that Len White's conclusion was simplistic. You know, he's simply looking at it on the face value, looking at maybe Christians, Western Christians also getting involved in environmental discussion. But the actual issue is that people have misunderstood the text. So,
good. So which means that it is about the understanding. Even if people read it in Hebrew, there will still be that understanding. The Hebrew word itself. Even if people read the text directly, those who understood Hebrew, the Jews, for instance, if they read the text directly, the problem will be how we understand the text and not how we translate the text. Would you agree?
I do, sir.
So if we agree so that the problem is with understanding and not translation, then the whole problem about how it is rendered in the account languages, how then will you defend that position?
Thank you, sir. It is important that we find a better text. That is the whole essence of exegesis. Exegesis is not to present the text, but to present a better text. So if there exists a text in a certain sense, and there can be a better one, we should always do that. That is why there's always translation, retranslation, all the time coming up. And again, we understand that translation goes with interpretation. Anytime we are translating, we are interpreting. So we should always have to find the better ways of expressing what the text is actually saying, so that everybody that reads it, not only scholars, but everybody that reads it, including casual readers, will understand what the text actually means. Thank you.
Okay, so soon to be done. My advice to you is that just look into this issue of translation and understanding. You did hint about it in your thesis, when you rightly said that the problem has to do with interpretation. But I think that some way, somehow, you seem to confuse interpretation with translation. The translation is trying to render, give the text in another language, but when it does so, the next level is people reading and understanding whatever is there. So try and differentiate between the two in your work.
Thank you.
Moving on, you raised, I saw eco-theology, eco-justice, and eco-theory. Sometimes I get confused how you use them. What is the difference? What is eco-theology? What do you mean by eco-justice? And then what is eco-theory?
Thank you, sir. I think eco-justice simply refers to humans' attempt to salvaging the environmental problems, because we have become increasingly aware of the fact that the modern human has been endangering his environment, and it is creating global warming, diseases, and so on. So, in order to salvage the ecological crisis in the environment, in order to give justice to the environment, that is, in order to stop people from abusing the environment, is what eco-justice is. And eco-theology will be a subset of eco-justice. It will be an attempt for people to actually use the Bible, use the Christian ideas in order to respond to the ecological crisis.
So my advice is that go and take a second look at them and be consistent. Don't use them interchangeably. Know exactly which of the concepts here represents. If they are working within eco-theology, that's eco-theology. They are bringing concepts like eco-justice and eco-theory, which are not really within, they can be used outside biblical studies or religious studies. Then you should be careful how you use them.
Okay, sir.
Do you get it? Yeah, so you can look at it.
Now,
Now, within the eco-theology, within biblical hermeneutics about the environment, there are several principles. I didn't see you doing your literature review. You didn't really hint so much. You talk of certain concepts such as biocentrism, pantheism, and all the rest. But for me, there are principles that you didn't really give attention to. One principle that is really dominant in your work is interconnectedness, for instance. And I think that's the heart of your work. Your thesis that the environment and human beings are interconnected. But there are equally other principles such as the intrinsic worth of the environment. The intrinsic worth of the environment, you can look at that. The principle of voice, I mean, you read the prophets and the rest in eco-theology, that the environment has a voice. The environment itself can speak. We have a principle of resistance. And all those principles are there. So you have to know the principle or theory that underpins. Though I think that what really stands out in your work is the interconnectedness, which lies there. You also have the custodianship, which in a way also is reflected in your. But I don't know whether you found any of those principles in your research. Intrinsic worth of the environment itself.
yes, please. Thank you very much. I've taken note of them, sir.
Okay. We are moving on. I told you I have quite a number of issues.
So we have time, so when we are seeing our next
Okay, thank you. Now, the mother tongue aspect of your work, which I think is very enriching. For me, I think that's where the contribution of the study is, where you can make a unique contribution to the study. My question, I'm not an expert there, but when you say Akan language, do you see them to be all mutually intelligible?
Thank you very much. The Akan languages are, we are talking about the dialects. They are many, but the the Bible has been translated into 3 of them. In fact, one is in the process, which is the Bono tree. They are working on it and I've indicated in my work, where they have gotten to. But Asante tree, Fancy tree, and that of the Priapim tree. These are the dialects within which...
Yes, my question is, are they mutually intelligible?
Yes, please.
Are they mutually intelligible?
They are.
Would you say that an Epiapim tree, an Epiapim person, when he takes the fancy and reads, would easily understand without any problems?
Yeah, they have few challenges, but
okay, that being the case, I didn't read anywhere that you had consultants. Are you an Ashanti, a Epiapim, or a Fancy?
I'm Asante, sir.
So how do you do the works in the Epiapim and the Fancy? Because I didn't see you engaging consultants. Did you engage consultants?
No, sir.
How do you do Fancy and Epiapim? On what basis do we take your positions on the Epiapim to be better?
Yeah, thank you, sir. My supervisor is a Fancy, so he helped me, and again, that is the reason why my alternative translations, I did it in Asante tree, and I said that the other dialects, the other Kan languages, they could look at it for revision.
So my advice there is that the little I know about mother tongue is that, as the name goes, mother tongue, you have to be native. So you don't go purporting the language principles or whatever for other native languages and all that. I think it would have been good if you had consulted maybe language consultants in those areas. Otherwise, in a fancy, I remember even though I'm a fancy, when I read the section on the fancy proposals, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in fancy, because I'm a fancy. And I gave the work to someone who is a fancy expert and was raising 1 or 2 issues with the fancy claims that you were making. Do you get it? So the language, you have to be careful. Should they assume that because it's a Kan, therefore an Ashanti can speak for a fancy, a Piapim or something? So pay attention to those issues.
Thank you, sir.
The issue about sampling, the churches, how did you go about the field work? What was the population, how did you deal with the sampling?
Thank you very much. I sampled 5 churches. 5 churches in
what was the population?
Yes, because I spoke to the leaders, I was looking at the leaders. So 5 pastors, 5 churches, 5 pastors. In terms of the churches, that's what I did. And then I also spoke to experts in Akan history and culture, and then I spoke to ordinary Akan people, chiefs and all that. For churches, I focus on the leaders, so I spoke to 5 leaders.
Okay, in fact, in biblical studies, most of us, we are not good in field work or social science research and all that. So if you are bringing that on board in biblical studies, then you have to make sure that at least you have somebody who looks at that aspect of the methodology. So first, you need to tell us the population. If you are doing it in, you say churches, then is it all churches? And how you got the 5? So the sample size is the 5, but you are not telling us the population. That is the entire churches within the Cape Coast, Kumasi, because I'm the Cape Coast, Kumasi metropolis. Do you get it? You have to walk us to tell us how was it purposely? So I think it was purposely.
Yes.
That's why I selected the 5. And how, now my major question is the ethical issues. I see the slide currently showing Pentecost church, and you mentioned the churches. Did you seek ethical clearance? And how did you deal with ethical issues? Anonymity, confidentiality, and the rest. You can tell me that mention their names and bring the churches and they don't care.
Well, please, I wouldn't lie. I didn't take any ethical clearance, but I didn't really intend bringing the names. So if you look at the presentation there, the presentation here, the names are not there, but somebody asked me the question, wanted to actually know. That is why I mentioned it. So I think that you should end here.
Yes, sometimes some of these cases can take it on if they are making claims that they've acquired wetland and they built in wetland. You might have a case, but the point is that they might take you on. So you have to first seek their permission and all that. You, as Riley said, I spoke to the pastor, but I don't know whether they gave you the permission to put their names out there and say potentially, I don't know, incriminating things about them. So maybe you look at it. If you can find a way to quote them. Just don't mention the names and all that. I don't think that is ethical, especially when they're not giving you the permission to do so. I don't know whether I have time.
No.
Do I have time? Yes,
I'll let you ask my last question. But I understand the issue of ethical clearance. But if you go to a wetland and there's a church there and there's a signboard and the church name, we don't need ethical clearance to mention that. So if it is in relation to the case, the buildings, but if it's about discussion between the pastors, and then he then coming here to mention whatever discussion, then I share your complaint on that.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it was about the discussions, and as you rightly said, sometimes even mention the names of certain pastors and what they said and all that. But of course, I mean, if it is wrong, that one it is wrong. So maybe you could have brought that one out.
Please, before your final.
That's about the Barak and the PL. I just wanted to draw attention to the fact, is it always that the PL is intensive? Sometimes the PL could be simple, so that Barak less. For me, I don't see anything wrong with the translations, the Mushra, Ishra, Barak, less. Because it's not always. Maybe check. Go and check the lexicon and see whether it is always that the PL is translated as intensive. But there are certain words where, even in the intensive, there are certain words that take on a simple nickname. So you can cross-check that. Thank you. Congratulations. I really enjoyed reading your work.
Thank you.
And I can say because we have produced another marathon biblical hermeneutics theologian. From the Old Testament perspective, our New Testament. So you are coming on board. Now we are two. You might go one more. Now, I can see that your work is interdisciplinary. It cuts through a lot of disciplines, from Old Testament theology, marathon biblical hermeneutics, anthropology, and eschatology. I can see this four disciplines. Now, let me start with the eschatology. Yesterday, I edited somebody's biography, his death, and then I came across two words in the biography. One, he's gone to his maker. Two, he's gone to his creator. Which of these would you say is correct? From the theological point, Old Testament theological point of view, and from the exegesis you have given us.
Thank you, Prof. I would suggest he's gone to his maker instead of creator.
But we have been hearing God created him. He's gone to his creator. So how do you correct this? Your thesis maybe more information will tell us. Your statement is good. So on this note, talking about the formal equivalence and dynamic equivalence, which of them did you, philosophies in Bible translation, which of them do you employ in your work?
Thank you, Prof. I employ both because at a certain point of the test situation, you have to employ functional equivalence or dynamic equivalence, as you say. Then, and another point, you may have to employ the literal literal equivalents. So, as and when, that is why the text is in context. The context is always very important. When the Hebrew, for example, there's no problem over there. There's no need for you to use dynamic. You can go straight to the literal. But where if you actually translate the Hebrew into the receptor language and you could create a problem, you need to find a better word, sometimes a phrase to put it there. Because translation involves interpretation.
In other words, we have the Hebrew Bible of the Greek New Testament, but they didn't drop together. You see, when we are translating into a community, we think about the culture, the concepts, and the language of the people. The whole idea is to make sure that they have gotten the word of God in their language, and they read it, mean it, to show that God also understands their language. So would you agree that there will be something called optimal equivalence in Bible translation?
Optimal equivalence. What would that mean, sir?
Yeah. I rest my case. There's a middle point. There's a middle point.
Oh, okay.
Don't go to the extreme. Yeah. We have functional, we have a thought for thought, word for word. But in the middle, there should be a time when you say that, look, the Hebrew is correct. I mean, it's straight. Yeah. But in that kind of language, it won't be straight. So let me get some phrases to make sure I fill the gap so that people can understand.
I agree, sir.
Yes, I rest my case.
Mazal Tov.
Thank you.
Mazal Tov is congratulations.
So much concern with the methodology. Okay. Taking your work as an example, what recommendation will you make for methodology and approach of biblical studies that seek to situate the meaning of the text in the life of the people, the real readers of the text?
Thank you, Prof. I would recommend historical critical as an approach in dealing with the text, because exegesis, which is an aspect of historical critical, actually seeks to bring out meaning. Exegesis from the Greek exegomai, to bring out meaning, not to read meaning into the text. That is eisegesis. So if you want to speak to a people, the context, even the current context, you need to look at the context then before you can look at the context now. And in looking at the context then, you have to pass the text through the approach that I showed. Look at it in context, look at the textual situation, semantic, the morphological, the syntactical. Then you can establish the meaning in that context, the biblical context. Then you bring that meaning into your context. So I will always recommend this approach, sir.
So good. Thank you very much for your cooperation, patience, etc. during the course of supervision.
Great.
Thank you. Congratulations.
It seems like I don't want to
party.
Thank you, Paul. Please, Ph.D., then may I make an inquiry? Yes, I had a message about the thesis examination. Gloria Tabi, I don't know. Yes. Please, the same work was sent to Dr. Sample. I don't know what the problem with it.
Nowadays, your phone is not working.
Excellent. You're on furniture, right? Come on, wait. Yes, for me, so we should.